One cold night, a homeless girl named Riley stepped into traffic to save an elderly woman who could barely stand. Within an hour, roaring engines surrounded her, and the leader of the Hells Angels called her family in front of men who would die for him or kill for him. Riley thought she had finally found the home she had been searching for her entire life. But when she discovered that one of those men had destroyed her mother years before she ever met them, she had to choose between revenge and the only belonging she had ever been offered. Her rescue was someone else's trap, and the man hunting her family had been watching from the shadows the entire time. If you stand with the innocent, not the bullies, tap subscribe right now, because people who hide the truth never do. The December wind cut through the alley like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. Riley crouched behind a dumpster, her thin jacket doing almost nothing to keep out the cold. Her fingers were numb, her body aching from another night on the concrete. 19 years old, and she had been living like this for 8 months, ever since her foster family threw her out the day she turned 18. No warning, no second chance, just a garbage bag full of her clothes and the door slamming shut behind her. She had learned quickly that the streets did not care about fairness. They did not care that she had tried her best in school, that she had kept her head down, that she had never caused trouble. The streets only cared about survival, and Riley had become very good at surviving. She pulled her knees closer to her chest, trying to trap whatever warmth her body still had. The soup kitchen would not open for another 4 hours. For more hours of cold. For more hours of hunger gnawing at her stomach like a living thing. But Riley had learned something else during her time on the streets, something that kept her going when everything else felt hopeless. Kindness still existed. Even in the darkest corners of the world, even when no one was watching, kindness still mattered. She had seen it in the way a stranger once handed her a sandwich without saying a word. She had felt it when an old man left his umbrella beside her on a rainy night. And tonight, she would give it again. Across the street, an elderly woman stood at the curb, gripping a worn cane with both hands. Her body trembled, not just from the cold, but from fear. Cars roared past her, their headlights cutting through the midnight darkness like knives. The woman tried to step forward once, twice, but each time she pulled back, her courage failing her. Riley watched her struggle. She recognized that fear. She had lived it every single day. Without thinking, Riley pushed herself up from the cold ground. Her legs were stiff, her body protesting the movement, but she crossed the empty sidewalk toward the woman anyway. Her worn sneakers made soft sounds against the pavement. "Ma'am," Riley said gently, her voice cutting through the roar of passing traffic. "Let me help you." The old woman turned sharply, startled. Her eyes scanned Riley from head to toe. The torn jacket, the dirty jeans, the tangled hair that had not seen a proper brush in weeks. For a moment, Riley thought she would refuse. People usually did. They saw the dirt and the desperation, and they looked away. But this woman was different. Something softened in her gaze. Relief flooded her weathered face, followed by something deeper. Trust. "Thank you, child," the woman whispered, her voice shaking almost as much as her hands. Riley stepped closer and gently took the woman's arm. Together, they moved slowly toward the edge of the curb. A car sped past, close enough that Riley felt the rush of wind against her face. She tightened her grip on the woman's arm and stepped into the street first, positioning her own body between the traffic and the elderly woman. Another car honked loudly, swerving around them. Riley did not flinch. She kept walking, guiding the woman carefully across the dark road, her heart pounding but her steps steady. She had faced worse than angry drivers. She had faced hunger, cold, and loneliness so deep it felt like drowning. This was just traffic. When they finally reached the other side safely, the woman released a long, trembling breath. Her grip on Riley's arm loosened, but she did not let go completely. "You are very kind," the woman said softly, studying Riley's face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "What is your name?" "Riley." The woman's eyes flickered with something unreadable. She repeated the name slowly, as if testing the weight of it. "Riley. A strong name for a strong girl." Riley shifted awkwardly and used to compliments. "I should get going, ma'am. You should get home safe." "Where are you going tonight?" the woman asked quietly, her gaze dropping to Riley's torn jacket and the dirt on her hands. Riley hesitated. She hated pity. She had learned that pity did not put food in her stomach or a roof over her head. Pity just made people feel better about themselves before they walked away. I'll be fine, Riley said, forcing a small smile. Really? The woman opened her mouth to respond, but the words never came. The roar of motorcycle engines shattered the silence. Riley's head snapped toward the sound. 3 massive bikes pulled up to the curb, their chrome gleaming under the streetlights like polished steel. The engines rumbled low and deep, vibrating through the ground beneath Riley's feet. Men climbed off the bikes, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in black leather vests covered in patches. Their faces were hard, weathered by years of living by their own rules. Riley's stomach dropped when she saw the patch on their backs. Hell's Angels MC. Her body tensed instinctively. Every survival instinct she had learned on the streets screamed at her to run. She had heard the stories. Everyone had. These were not men you wanted to cross. These were not men you wanted to be near. But the woman beside her did not move. She did not flinch. She did not look afraid. Instead, she smiled. The largest man approached first. His beard was thick and dark, streaked with gray. His eyes were sharp, calculating, taking in every detail of the scene before him. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze shifting between his mother and Riley. "Mom," he said, his voice deep and controlled. "You all right?" Riley's breath caught. "Mom?" "Yes, Marcus," the woman replied calmly, as if standing on a dark street corner surrounded by bikers was the most natural thing in the world. "Thanks to this young lady." Marcus turned his full attention to Riley. The weight of his stare felt crushing, like being pinned under a spotlight. She could not breathe, could not move. Every muscle in her body locked in place. "What's your name?" he asked. Riley's mouth went dry. "Riley." Marcus studied her for a long, silent moment. His expression gave nothing away. Then he glanced at his mother, and something passed between them. A silent message that Riley could not read. "Come with us," Marcus said. Riley's heart slammed against her ribs. I didn't do anything wrong." "I know," Marcus said, his tone softening just slightly. "That's exactly why you're coming." And as Riley stood frozen on that dark street corner, surrounded by the rumble of motorcycles and the watchful eyes of men who lived by their own rules, she realized her life was about to change in ways she could never have predicted. Riley's legs refused to move. Every instinct told her to run, but where would she go? Back to the alley? Back to the cold concrete and the gnawing hunger? She had nowhere to run to. Marcus waited patiently, his expression unreadable. The other 2 men stood beside their bikes, silent and still, like statues carved from leather and steel. They did not speak. They did not move. They just watched. The elderly woman, Marcus's mother, stepped closer to Riley and placed a gentle hand on her arm. "It's all right, dear," she said softly. "You are not in danger. I promise you that." Riley looked into the woman's eyes and saw nothing but kindness. The same kindness that had trusted her on the street corner moments ago. Against every logical thought screaming in her head, Riley found herself nodding. "Okay," she whispered. Marcus gestured toward one of the bikes. "Ride with me." Riley climbed onto the back of his motorcycle, her hands gripping the leather seat beneath her. The engine roared to life, vibrating through her entire body. She had never been on a motorcycle before. She had never been this close to someone like Marcus before. The ride took them out of the city, away from the street lights and the noise, into the quiet darkness of the outskirts. Riley watched the lights fade behind them, her heart pounding with every passing mile. She had no idea where they were taking her. She had no idea what they wanted. But for some reason she could not explain, she was not afraid anymore. After 20 minutes, the bikes pulled up to an old warehouse. Lights spilled from the windows, warm and inviting against the cold night. Music played faintly inside. Voices laughed and talked, the sound of life and community. Marcus helped his mother off her bike first, then turned to Riley. "Welcome home," he said simply. Riley climbed off slowly, her legs shaky from the ride. She followed Marcus and his mother inside, and the moment she stepped through the door, she froze. The walls were covered in photographs. Hundreds of them. Rides, parties, memorials, funerals. Faces she did not recognize, smiling and laughing and living. But in the center of one large frame, 3 people stood together, younger versions of Marcus, his mother, and a woman with dark hair and bright eyes. Riley's breath caught. She knew that face. She had seen it in the single, faded photograph she carried in her jacket pocket. The only picture she had left. "That's my mother," Riley whispered, her voice barely audible. The room fell silent. Marcus turned slowly, his expression shifting from calm to something raw and unguarded. What did you say? Riley pointed at the photograph with a trembling hand. That woman. That's my mother. Her name was Sarah. Marcus's mother gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes instantly, spilling down her cheeks without restraint. Oh my God, she breathed. Sarah Carter. Your mother was Sarah Carter. Riley nodded, confused and terrified and hopeful all at once. Yes. How do you know her? Marcus stepped closer, his jaw tight, his eyes filled with something Riley had never seen before. Pain. Deep, old pain that had never fully healed. Sarah Carter was my sister, he said, his voice cracking on the last word. She died 8 years ago, and we have been looking for you ever since. The words hit Riley like a physical blow. Her knees buckled, and Marcus caught her before she fell. The room spun. The air felt too thick to breathe. No, Riley whispered. That's impossible. I don't have family. I've never had family. You do now, Marcus's mother said, stepping forward and cupping Riley's face in her hands. You always did. We just could not find you. Riley stared into the woman's eyes, searching for lies, for tricks, for any sign that this was not real. But all she saw was truth. Raw, heartbreaking truth. Come sit, Marcus said gently, guiding her to a worn couch in the corner. We need to talk. Riley sat, her body numb, her mind racing. Marcus sat across from her, his hands clasped together, his expression heavy with years of regret. Your mother left us when you were a baby, he began. She wanted a different life, a quieter life. She did not want you growing up around this. He gestured to the clubhouse around them. She tried to disappear, to start over somewhere safe. But someone found her. Someone we trusted. Riley's chest tightened. What happened? Marcus's jaw clenched. She died in a car accident. At least, that is what they told us. But we never believed it. We searched for you for years, but every trail went cold. Foster care, sealed records, lost paperwork. It was like you vanished. I did vanish, Riley said quietly. I moved through 6 foster homes. No one ever told me I had family looking for me. Marcus's mother sat beside Riley and took her hand. You have family now, child. You are not alone anymore. Riley looked around the room at the faces watching her. Some curious, some wary, some openly emotional. These were not just strangers. They were her mother's people. Her people. Why did you help my mom? Riley asked Marcus. Why didn't you just let her go? Marcus's expression softened. Because she was my sister. And I failed her once. I will not fail you. Riley's throat tightened, tears burning behind her eyes. For the first time in 8 months, maybe for the first time in her entire life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. But as the warmth of the clubhouse wrapped around her and the voices of her newfound family filled the air, Riley did not notice the shadow moving outside the window. She did not see the man standing in the darkness, watching her through the glass. And she had no idea that the family who had just claimed her was being hunted. Riley woke to sunlight streaming through a small window above her head. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memories rushed back. The street corner, the motorcycles, Marcus's face when she said her mother's name. She sat up slowly, her body aching but warm for the first time in months. The guest room was simple but clean, with a real bed, real blankets, and a door that locked from the inside. Riley had not slept in a real bed since the day her last foster family kicked her out. She touched the blanket carefully, as if it might disappear if she pressed too hard. A soft knock came at the door. Riley, dear. Marcus's mother's voice was gentle. May I come in? Yes, ma'am. The door opened, and the elderly woman stepped inside carrying a tray with scrambled eggs, toast, and hot tea. The smell made Riley's stomach clench with hunger. You must be starving, the woman said, setting the tray on the small table beside the bed. Eat first, then we will talk. Riley did not need to be told twice. She ate quickly, her hands trembling as she scooped up the eggs. The woman sat in a chair across from her, watching with quiet satisfaction. My name is Evelyn, she said softly. I should have told you that last night. Riley swallowed a bite of toast. Thank you, Mrs. Evelyn. For everything. Just Evelyn. The older woman corrected with a small smile. We are family now. No need for formalities. The word family still felt strange in Riley's mouth. She had spent her entire life without one. Now, in the span of a single night, She had been handed a family she never knew existed. "Can you tell me about my mother?" Riley asked quietly. "I only have one picture of her. I do not remember her face." Evelyn's eyes softened with sadness and warmth. "Your mother was beautiful, Riley. Not just on the outside, but in the way she moved through the world. She loved fast rides, but she hated violence. She wanted peace. She wanted safety for you." Riley set down her fork, her appetite fading as emotion tightened her throat. "Why did she leave?" Evelyn sighed deeply. "Because she knew this life was dangerous. She did not want you growing up surrounded by men who lived by their fists and their loyalty. She wanted you to have choices she never had. But she died anyway," Riley said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Evelyn said. "And that is the part that has haunted us for 8 years." Before Riley could ask more, the door opened again. Marcus stepped inside, his expression serious. "Mom, I need to talk to Riley." "Alone?" Evelyn stood slowly, patting Riley's shoulder as she left. "Take your time, dear." When the door closed, Marcus pulled the chair closer and sat down heavily. He looked tired, as if he had not slept at all. "I want to show you something," he said, pulling a small wooden box from under his arm. He set it on the table and opened it carefully. Inside were Sarah's things: a leather jacket with frayed sleeves, a silver locket with a broken chain, a stack of old photographs, and a folded piece of paper yellowed with age. Riley reached for the locket first, her fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside was a tiny picture of a baby with wide eyes and a toothless grin. "That's you," Marcus said quietly. She carried that everywhere. Tears blurred Riley's vision. She had never seen this picture before. She had never known her mother kept her close, even after everything. Marcus picked up the folded paper and handed it to her. "This is the last thing your mother wrote before she died." Riley unfolded the letter carefully, her heart pounding. The handwriting was messy, hurried, as if Sarah had been writing in a panic. "I'm meeting him tonight. He says he can get me papers, a new name, a safe place for Riley. I don't know if I can trust him, but I have no other choice. If something happens to me, tell Marcus I'm sorry. Tell Riley I loved her more than anything." The letter ended there. No signature, no name. Who was she meeting? Riley asked, her voice shaking. Marcus's jaw tightened. "We don't know. The name is smudged out, but there's one letter still visible. A J." Riley stared at the letter, her mind racing. "You think someone in your club did this?" Marcus did not answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. "I think someone she trusted led her into a trap, and I think that person is still close." A chill ran down Riley's spine. "What do you mean?" Marcus stood and walked to the window, his hands clenched into fists. 2 days ago, word got out that I found you. Someone has been asking questions, offering money for information about you." Riley's blood ran cold. "Who?" "A rival gang," Marcus said. "But they would not care about you unless someone told them you mattered." "Someone inside." Riley's hands shook as she set the letter down. "You think someone in your club is working with them?" Marcus turned to face her, his expression hard. "I know it." Before Riley could respond, shouting erupted downstairs. Voices rose in anger, followed by the crash of something heavy hitting the floor. Marcus cursed under his breath and bolted for the door. Riley followed close behind, her heart racing. When they reached the common room, chaos had erupted. 2 men were shoving each other, their faces red with rage. Others surrounded them, trying to pull them apart. "You sold us out," one of them shouted. "You told them she was here." "I didn't tell anyone anything," the other man roared back. Marcus stepped into the center of the crowd, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Enough." Everyone froze. Marcus pointed at the 2 men. "Both of you. My office. Now." As the crowd slowly dispersed, Riley stood at the edge of the room, her chest tight with fear. She had been here less than 24 hours, and already her presence was tearing this family apart. And somewhere in the shadows, the man who destroyed her mother was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The tension in the clubhouse did not fade. It lingered in every corner, every glance, every whispered conversation. Riley felt it pressing down on her like a heavy weight she could not shake. She spent the afternoon helping Evelyn in the kitchen, grateful for the distraction. Evelyn moved slowly, her hands shaking as she chopped vegetables, but she refused to sit down. "Staying busy keeps me sane," Evelyn said with a faint smile. "Especially when the men start acting like fools." Riley tried to smile back, but her mind kept replaying the fight she had witnessed. The anger, the accusation, the fear. Do you think someone here really betrayed my mother? Riley asked quietly. Evelyn's hand stilled. She set down the knife and turned to face Riley, her expression heavy with old grief. I pray that is not true. But Marcus has good instincts. If he believes it, then we must be careful. Riley nodded, her stomach twisting. She had spent years on the streets learning to trust no one. Now, surrounded by people who claimed to be family, she was being forced to trust them with her life. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Riley wandered into the quiet common room. Most of the men were outside working on their bikes or drinking beer around a fire pit. The room was empty except for one man. He sat alone in the corner, staring at a photograph on the wall. Riley recognized him from earlier. He had been one of the men trying to break up the fight. She hesitated, then walked closer. Is everything okay? The man looked up, startled. He was older, maybe in his 50s, with graying hair and deep lines around his eyes. His gaze softened when he saw her. Yeah, kid, he said quietly. Just thinking. Riley glanced at the photograph he had been staring at. It was Sarah, young, smiling, standing beside Marcus and Evelyn. You knew my mother, Riley said. The man nodded slowly. Yeah, I knew her. Riley sat down on the couch across from him. What was she like? The man was silent for a long moment, his hands gripping a coffee mug so tightly his knuckles turned white. She was good, he finally said. Too good for this life. She wanted out, and I don't blame her. Did you try to help her? Riley asked. The man's jaw tightened. I thought I was. Something in his tone made Riley's chest tighten. She leaned forward slightly. What do you mean? The man set down his mug and looked at her directly for the first time. His eyes were filled with guilt, so deep it made Riley's breath catch. My name is Jack, he said quietly. And I'm the one who told someone where your mother was hiding. Riley's world tilted. The air left her lungs in a rush. Jack continued, his voice shaking. She called me that night. Said she was meeting someone who could help her disappear. She was scared, but she was hopeful. I told her to be careful. And then I made the worst mistake of my life. What did you do? Riley whispered. I told a guy I thought was a friend. Jack said, his voice breaking. I thought he just wanted to talk to her, to make sure she was okay. I didn't know he was working with people who wanted to hurt Marcus. I didn't know it was a trap. Riley stared at him, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. My mother died because of you. Jack's face crumpled. Yes. The single word hung in the air like a death sentence. Riley stood slowly, her hands shaking. Rage and grief crashed through her in waves, threatening to drown her. This man, this stranger who smiled at her, who sat in the same room as her family, was the reason her mother was dead. Riley, Jack started, but she cut him off. Don't, she said, her voice trembling. Don't say my name. She turned and walked out of the room, her vision blurred with tears. She did not know where she was going. She just knew she could not be near him. She found Marcus outside by the fire pit, talking quietly with two other men. When he saw her face, he immediately stood. What happened? Riley's voice came out choked and broken. Jack. He told me. He's the one who got my mother killed. Marcus's entire body went rigid. His expression shifted from concern to pure, cold fury in an instant. He turned and stormed toward the clubhouse, the other men following close behind. Riley stood frozen, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. Inside, she heard Marcus's voice roar through the building. Jack, get out here now. Moments later, Jack stumbled out of the clubhouse, Marcus gripping him by the collar. The other men surrounded them, their faces hard and unforgiving. You told me you didn't know anything. Marcus shouted, his voice shaking with rage. You looked me in the eye for 8 years and lied. I didn't mean for it to happen. Jack shouted back, his voice desperate. I swear to God, Marcus, I thought I was helping her. She's dead because of you. Marcus roared, and he shoved Jack backward. Jack stumbled, but did not fall. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Marcus, stop. No. Marcus snapped. He doesn't get to walk away from this. Neither do you, Evelyn said firmly. She stepped between Marcus and Jack, her frail body a barrier between violence and the truth. Your sister told me once that hate only chains people to the worst day of their lives. Marcus's chest heaved, his fist still clenched. He deserves to pay. And he has, Evelyn said softly. Look at him, Marcus. He has been paying for 8 years. Riley watched Jack's face crumple, tears streaming down his cheeks. He looked broken, destroyed. Evelyn turned to Riley, her eyes gentle but firm. This is your choice, child, not ours. Riley's throat tightened. Everyone was watching her, waiting. She looked at Jack, and for the first time, she saw not just the man who destroyed her mother's life, but the man who had been destroyed by his own mistake. I will never forget what you did, Riley said, her voice steady despite the tears. But I won't let your mistake define me. Jack's shoulders shook with silent sobs. Riley turned to Marcus. He lives with it every day? That's punishment enough. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, then slowly unclenched his fists. But as the fire crackled and the night deepened, none of them noticed the figure standing just beyond the property line, watching through the trees. The man who had been hunting them smiled in the darkness, and he made a phone call. If you believe no child should lose their parent to betrayal, comment, "No more lies," and let the guilty know we see them. The days that followed felt like walking on broken glass. Riley moved through the clubhouse carefully, aware that every step she took was being watched, measured, judged. Some of the men nodded to her with respect. Others kept their distance, their eyes filled with questions they did not ask out loud. Jack stayed away from her completely. He worked in the garage, kept his head down, and spoke only when necessary. Riley caught glimpses of him sometimes, his shoulders hunched, his movements slow and heavy with guilt. She told herself she did not care. She told herself he deserved to suffer. But late at night, when the clubhouse was quiet and sleep would not come, she thought about what Evelyn had said. Hate only chains people to the worst day of their lives. Riley did not want to be chained. Not anymore. One morning, Marcus called her into his office. The room was small and cluttered with papers, maps, and photographs pinned to the walls. He sat behind a worn desk, his expression serious. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Riley sat, her hands folded in her lap. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her closely. "You handled yourself well the other night. Not many people could have done what you did." Riley looked down. "I didn't do it for Jack." "I know," Marcus said. "You did it for yourself. That takes strength." Riley did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Marcus pulled a folder from his desk and slid it across to her. "I've been doing some digging. The rival gang that's been asking about you, they're led by a man named Vincent Crane. He's been trying to take control of this territory for years." Riley opened the folder. Inside was a photograph of a man in his 40s, clean-shaven, sharply dressed, with cold eyes that made her skin crawl. "Why does he care about me?" Riley asked. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Because your mother was the key to something bigger. Something we didn't understand until now." Riley looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Marcus hesitated, then pulled out another photograph. This one was older, faded. It showed Sarah standing beside a man Riley did not recognize. They were smiling, standing in front of a building she had never seen before. "Your mother didn't just leave to protect you," Marcus said quietly. "She left because she found out something she wasn't supposed to know. Something about money being funneled through our club without our knowledge." Riley's heart pounded. "What kind of money?" "Dirty money," Marcus said. "Vincent was using us as a cover for his operations. Your mother discovered it, and she was going to expose him. That's why she had to disappear. That's why she died." Riley stared at the photograph, her hands shaking. "And now he knows I'm here." "Yes," Marcus said. "And he thinks you might know something." "But I don't know anything," Riley said, her voice rising. "I was a baby when she left." "He doesn't care," Marcus said. "He just wants to make sure no one ever finds out what your mother knew." Riley's blood ran cold. "So he's going to kill me." Marcus's expression hardened. "Not while I'm breathing." Before Riley could respond, a loud crash echoed from outside. Shouting followed, then the roar of engines. Marcus was on his feet instantly. "Stay here." "No," Riley said, standing. "I'm not hiding anymore." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but there was no time. He pulled open a drawer and handed her a small canister. "Pepper spray. If anyone gets close to you, use it." Riley took it, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. They rushed outside together. The entire club had gathered in the yard, forming a defensive line. At the gate stood 4 men on motorcycles, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. One of them revved his engine, the sound echoing like a warning. Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but dangerous. "You're on private property. Leave. Now. The lead rider pulled off his helmet. It was not Vincent Crane. It was a younger man, scarred and grinning like a predator. We're not here for you, Marcus, the man said. We're here for the girl. Riley's stomach dropped. Marcus did not move. She's under my protection. Touch her, and you start a war. The man laughed. You think you can protect her? She's a dead girl walking, just like her mother. Rage flashed across Marcus's face, but before he could respond, Evelyn stepped forward. Her cane tapped against the ground with each slow, deliberate step. You think you can frighten us with threats? Evelyn said, her voice calm and steady. We have buried our dead. We have survived worse than you. And we will not hand over one of our own because you demand it. The man's grin faded. He looked past Evelyn to Riley, his eyes cold and calculating. This isn't over. No, Marcus said quietly. It's not. The men revved their engines and rode away, leaving nothing but dust and tension in their wake. Riley stood frozen, her heart hammering. Evelyn turned to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. You are not alone, child, Evelyn said softly. We will not let them take you. But as the clubhouse slowly returned to normal, Riley felt the weight of the truth settling over her like a shroud. Her mother had died trying to protect her from this. And now, Riley was standing in the exact same danger. The only difference was, this time, she was not running. That night, Riley could not sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation over and over in her mind. The man's words echoed in her ears. She's a dead girl walking, just like her mother. She would not let that be true. She refused. Riley got up and walked quietly through the hallway. The clubhouse was silent, most of the men either asleep or standing watch outside. She made her way to the common room, hoping the stillness would calm her racing thoughts. But when she stepped inside, she found Jack sitting in the same corner, staring at the same photograph of Sarah. He looked up when he heard her, his eyes red and tired. Can't sleep either? Riley hesitated, then walked over and sat down across from him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I didn't come here to forgive you, Riley said finally. Jack nodded. I know, but I need to understand, Riley continued. Why did you tell him? Why didn't you just keep her secret? Jack's hands trembled as he set down his coffee mug. Because I was stupid. Because I trusted someone I shouldn't have. Because I thought loyalty meant something to everyone, not just to us. Riley looked at him closely. Who did you tell? Jack's jaw tightened. A guy named Eddie. He used to run with us years ago, before he left and started working for Vincent. I didn't know that at the time. I thought he was still one of us. Where is he now? Riley asked. Dead, Jack said quietly. Marcus found out what he did. He made sure Eddie never betrayed anyone again. Riley's chest tightened. And you've been carrying this guilt ever since. Jack looked at her, his eyes filled with unshed tears. Every single day, I see her face every time I close my eyes. I hear her voice. I remember the last time she hugged me and told me to take care of Marcus. His voice broke, and I failed her. Riley felt something crack inside her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something softer. Something human. My mother wouldn't want you to spend the rest of your life hating yourself, Riley said quietly. Jack's shoulders shook. How do you know? Because she left, Riley said. She left to protect me. She chose hope over hate. And if I spend my life hating you, then I'm not honoring her memory. I'm just repeating the cycle. Jack stared at her, tears streaming down his face. I don't deserve your mercy. Maybe not, Riley said. But I deserve peace. And I can't have that if I'm carrying this anger everywhere I go. Jack lowered his head, his hands covering his face. Riley stood slowly and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back. Make sure no one else loses their family because of a loose word, Riley said. That's how you make this right. Jack nodded, unable to speak. Riley stepped into the hallway and found Marcus leaning against the wall, his arms crossed. He had been listening. You're stronger than I thought, Marcus said quietly. Riley shrugged. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about feeling it, Marcus said. It's about choosing it anyway. They walked outside together, where the night air was cool and the stars were scattered across the sky like broken glass. The fire pit still burned low, casting long shadows across the yard. What happens now? Riley asked. Marcus looked out at the darkness beyond the fence. Now we prepare. Vincent won't stop. He'll come for you again. Then let him, Riley said, her voice steady. I'm not running anymore. Marcus smiled faintly. Good. Because we're not letting you. But as they stood there, side by side, neither of them noticed the black sedan parked just beyond the tree line. Its engine off, its windows dark. Inside, Vincent Crane watched them through binoculars, his expression cold and calculating. He lowered the binoculars and pulled out his phone. "It's time," he said into the receiver. "Move in tomorrow night." He hung up, started the engine, and drove away into the darkness. The storm was coming. If you stand for second chances over endless revenge, hit subscribe, because people who profit from hate never will. The next day felt different. The air was heavier, the tension sharper. Everyone in the clubhouse moved with purpose, checking weapons, reinforcing doors, making quiet phone calls to allies in nearby chapters. Riley watched from the kitchen window as Marcus gathered the men in the yard. His voice was low and serious, his hands gesturing as he laid out a plan she could not hear. The men listened intently, their faces grim. Evelyn stood beside Riley, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. "They're preparing for war," Evelyn said softly. Riley's chest tightened. "Because of me." Evelyn turned to her, her expression firm. "No, child. Because of Vincent. Because of greed and violence that existed long before you arrived. You are not the cause. You are simply the excuse he's been waiting for." Riley wanted to believe that, but the guilt still gnawed at her. "What if someone gets hurt?" Riley asked. "Then we will take care of them," Evelyn said simply. "That is what family does." Before Riley could respond, Marcus stepped back inside, his face tight with urgency. "Mom, Riley, I need you both upstairs. Now." They followed him quickly. He led them to a small storage room at the back of the building. Inside were supplies, blankets, water bottles, and a radio. "If things go bad tonight," Marcus said, "you both stay in here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or someone I send with this." He held up a silver coin with a unique marking on it. "Understand." Evelyn nodded calmly. Riley swallowed hard and nodded as well. Marcus handed the coin to Evelyn, then turned to Riley. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. No looking back. You just go." Riley's throat tightened. "I'm not leaving you." "You will if I say so," Marcus said firmly. "Your mother died protecting you. I won't let that be for nothing." Riley's eyes burned with unshed tears, but she nodded. Marcus pulled her into a brief, awkward hug. It was the first time he had touched her with anything other than caution. "Your family now? That means something." Before Riley could respond, the sound of engines roared in the distance. Marcus's expression hardened instantly. "They're here." He rushed downstairs, and Riley followed despite Evelyn's protests. She had to see. She had to know. When they reached the front door, the entire club was already positioned. Men stood in a defensive line, some armed, some holding nothing but their fists and their loyalty. At the gate, a convoy of black SUVs and motorcycles pulled up, surrounding the property like a noose tightening. Vincent Crane stepped out of the lead vehicle, dressed in a dark suit, his expression calm and confident. He looked more like a businessman than a criminal, but Riley could see the danger in his eyes. "Marcus Grant," Vincent called out, his voice smooth and mocking. "It's been a long time." Marcus stepped forward, his body a wall between Vincent and the clubhouse. "Not long enough." Vincent smiled. "I'm not here for trouble. I'm here for the girl." "She's not yours to take," Marcus said. "She's a liability," Vincent said. "Her mother knew too much. I can't have her daughter digging up the past." Riley's blood boiled. She stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "I don't know anything about your dirty money or your schemes. I don't care. I just want to live my life." Vincent's gaze shifted to her, cold and calculating. "You're Sarah's daughter, all right." She had the same fire. Look where it got her. Riley's hands clenched into fists. "My mother was brave. You're just a coward who hides behind threats." Vincent's smile faded. "Brave or stupid. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference." He raised his hand, and his men moved forward, their intentions clear. Marcus's voice cut through the tension like steel. "You take one more step, and this ends in blood." Vincent's expression did not change. "I'm counting on it." The first punch was thrown. Chaos erupted. Men collided in the yard, fists and shouts filling the air. Riley stumbled backward, her heart racing. Evelyn grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. "Inside now," Evelyn shouted. But before they could move, one of Vincent's men broke through the line, and lunged toward Riley. She barely had time to react before Jack appeared out of nowhere, tackling the man to the ground. "Go!" Jack shouted, his voice desperate. "Get her inside." Evelyn and Riley ran. Behind them, the sound of the fight grew louder, more violent. Riley's chest heaved as they reached the staircase, but she turned back, unable to stop herself. Through the doorway, she saw Marcus fighting two men at once, his movements brutal and efficient. She saw Jack struggling to hold off another attacker. She saw the flames starting to lick at the edges of the yard where someone had thrown a bottle. And then she saw Vincent, standing calmly in the middle of the chaos, watching her. Their eyes met. He smiled, and Riley understood with chilling clarity that this was not just about her. This was about power, about sending a message, about destroying everything Marcus had built. "Riley, come on," Evelyn pleaded, pulling her up the stairs. Riley tore her gaze away and followed, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. They reached the storage room, locked the door, and collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. Outside, the battle raged on, and Riley knew that no matter how this night ended, nothing would ever be the same. The storage room was small and suffocating. Riley pressed her ear to the door, listening to the chaos below. Shouting, breaking glass, the dull thud of bodies hitting the ground. Evelyn sat on a crate, her hands trembling as she gripped the silver coin Marcus had given her. Her lips moved in silent prayer. "We have to do something," Riley whispered, her voice shaking. "We stay here," Evelyn said firmly. "That is what Marcus told us to do." "But they're fighting because of me," Riley said, her voice rising. "People are getting hurt because Vincent wants me. And if you go out there, you will die," Evelyn said, her voice sharp. "And then Marcus will die trying to save you. And everything your mother sacrificed will mean nothing." Riley pressed her forehead against the door, tears streaming down her face. She felt helpless, useless, trapped. Then the sounds below began to change. The shouting grew quieter. The crashes stopped. An eerie silence settled over the clubhouse. Riley and Evelyn exchanged a terrified glance. Footsteps echoed on the stairs. Slow, deliberate. Riley's breath caught. Evelyn stood, clutching the coin tightly. The footsteps stopped outside the door. A knock. 3 times. "Mom." "Riley." "It's me." Marcus's voice. Evelyn moved to unlock the door, but Riley grabbed her arm. "Wait. How do we know it's really him?" Evelyn held up the coin and slid it under the door. "Show me yours." A moment of silence. Then a silver coin slid back under the door, identical to the one in Evelyn's hand. Evelyn unlocked the door, and Marcus stepped inside. His face was bruised, his knuckles bloody, but he was alive. "It's over," Marcus said quietly. Riley's legs nearly gave out. "Is everyone okay?" Marcus hesitated. "We lost no one. But Vincent's men retreated. For now." "For now," Riley repeated. "What does that mean?" Marcus's expression darkened. "It means he's regrouping. He'll come back. And next time, he'll bring more men." Riley's stomach twisted. "This will never end, will it?" Marcus looked at her, his gaze heavy with truth. "Not unless we end it." "How?" Riley asked. "By giving him what he wants," Marcus said. Riley's blood ran cold. "You mean me?" "No," Marcus said quickly. "I mean the truth. The evidence your mother was going to use against him. If we can find it and expose him, he loses everything. His power, his empire, his protection. But my mother is dead," Riley said. "How are we supposed to find evidence she had 8 years ago?" Marcus pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Before she died, your mother sent me a letter. I never understood what it meant until now." He unfolded the paper and showed it to Riley. The handwriting was shaky, hurried. "If anything happens to me, check the place where we used to hide as kids. The truth is buried where the roots run deep." Riley stared at the words. "What does that mean?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "It means we have to go back to where we grew up. There's an old oak tree on the property where our family used to live. Sarah and I used to bury things there when we were kids." "You think she had evidence there?" Riley asked. "I think it's the only place that makes sense," Marcus said. Evelyn stood slowly, her expression resolute. "Then we go? Tonight?" Marcus shook his head. "It's too dangerous. Vincent's men could be watching." "Which is exactly why we go now," Evelyn said. "Before he has time to figure out what we're planning." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew his mother was right. He turned to Riley. "You stay here." "No," Riley said firmly. If this is about my mother, then I'm coming. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but the look in Riley's eyes stopped him. She was not asking for permission. She was telling him. Fine, Marcus said. But you do exactly what I say. Understand? Riley nodded. 30 minutes later, they were on the road. Marcus drove, with Evelyn in the passenger seat and Riley in the back. Jack and 2 other men followed on motorcycles, keeping watch. The drive was silent and tense. Riley stared out the window, watching the city lights fade into darkness as they headed toward the countryside. After an hour, Marcus turned onto a dirt road that led deep into the woods. The headlights illuminated a small, abandoned house, its windows broken, its roof sagging. This is it, Marcus said quietly. This is where we grew up. They climbed out of the car and walked toward the back of the property. The moon was bright enough to see by, casting long shadows across the overgrown yard. Marcus stopped in front of a massive oak tree, its trunk thick and gnarled with age. This is where we used to bury our treasures, Marcus said. He knelt down and began digging with his hands. Riley and Jack joined him, their fingers clawing through dirt and roots. Minutes passed. Then Marcus's hand hit something solid. He pulled out a small metal box, rusted and covered in mud. Marcus's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a stack of photographs, documents, and a USB drive. Marcus held up one of the photographs. It showed Vincent Crane standing beside a man Riley did not recognize, shaking hands in front of a warehouse. This is it, Marcus whispered. This is what she died for. Riley stared at the box, her heart pounding. Her mother had risked everything to protect this truth. And now, Riley held her mother's legacy in her hands. But before anyone could speak, headlights flooded the clearing. Vincent's voice echoed through the night. I knew you'd come here eventually. Vincent stepped out of his SUV, flanked by 6 men. Their faces were hard, their hands resting on weapons tucked into their belts. The headlights bathed the clearing in harsh white light, turning the night into a stage for confrontation. Marcus stood slowly, positioning himself between Vincent and the metal box. Jack and the other men moved closer, forming a protective circle around Riley and Evelyn. You're predictable, Marcus, Vincent said, his voice calm and almost amused. I knew Sarah would have left something behind, and I knew eventually you'd come looking for it. Marcus's jaw tightened. You've been following us. Not me personally, Vincent said, but I have people everywhere. You should know that by now. Riley's heart pounded as she clutched the metal box against her chest. Inside were the photographs, the documents, the USB drive, everything her mother had died protecting. Let them go, Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. This is between you and me. Vincent laughed softly. No, Marcus. This is about power. This is about making sure no one ever threatens what I've built. His eyes shifted to Riley. And unfortunately for you, that includes her. Riley stepped forward before anyone could stop her. My mother found out you were using Marcus's club to launder money. She was going to expose you. So you had her killed. Vincent's expression did not change. Your mother was a problem. Problems get solved. Rage flooded through Riley like fire. She was a person. She was a mother. She had a life. And now she doesn't, Vincent said coldly. That's what happens to people who forget their place. Marcus lunged forward, but Jack grabbed his arm, holding him back. Not yet, Jack whispered urgently. We need to be smart. Vincent smiled at the display. Smart. Yes. Let me tell you what smart looks like. He pulled out his phone and held it up. 1 call, and 20 more of my men arrive. You'll all be dead before sunrise, and that box will be in my hands anyway. Or, Evelyn said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. We make that call first. She held up her own phone, the screen glowing in the darkness. My son is not the only one with connections, Vincent. While you've been talking, I've been recording. Every word you just said. Every confession. Vincent's smile faltered. And I've already sent it to 3 different people. Evelyn continued calmly. A federal agent, a journalist, and a lawyer who specializes in taking down men like you. Vincent's face darkened. You're bluffing. Try me, Evelyn said, her voice steady and cold. For the first time, Vincent looked uncertain. His eyes darted between Evelyn's phone and the metal box in Riley's hands. Marcus took a step forward. Here's how this ends, Vincent. You walk away. You leave us alone. You leave Riley alone. And maybe, we don't destroy you. And if I don't? Vincent asked. Marcus's expression hardened. Then every club in this state hears what you did. Every partner you've ever worked with finds out you've been stealing from them. Every cop on your payroll sees proof of what you really are. You'll have nowhere to hide. Vincent's jaw clenched. His hand moved toward his belt. Don't, Jack said quietly, pulling his own weapon and aiming it directly at Vincent. You might get one of us, but you won't get all of us. And you definitely won't get that box. The silence that followed was suffocating. Vincent stared at Jack, then at Marcus, then at Riley. His face twisted with rage, but slowly, he lowered his hand. This isn't over, Vincent said through gritted teeth. Yes, it is, Marcus said. You just don't know it yet. Vincent turned and walked back to his SUV, his men following. The engines roared to life, and the vehicles drove away, disappearing into the darkness. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Then Riley's knees buckled, and Marcus caught her before she fell. It's over, Marcus said softly. It's really over. Riley looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. My mother would be proud of you. Marcus's eyes glistened. She'd be proud of you. Evelyn placed a gentle hand on Riley's shoulder. You stood your ground, child. That takes more courage than running ever could. Jack holstered his weapon and stepped closer. I meant what I said before. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no one else loses their family because of my mistakes. Riley looked at him, and for the first time, she saw not just the man who had betrayed her mother, but the man who was trying to make it right. Then start now, Riley said quietly. Help us make sure this evidence gets to the right people. Jack nodded, his expression resolute. I will. They climbed back into the vehicles and drove through the night, the metal box safely in Riley's hands. The evidence would be delivered to the authorities by morning. Vincent's empire would crumble, and for the first time in 8 years, justice would be served. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Riley felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. 3 weeks later, the clubhouse felt different. The tension that had hung in the air like smoke had finally lifted. The men laughed more easily. The music played a little louder. The fire pit burned a little brighter. Vincent Crane had been arrested. The evidence Sarah had gathered, combined with Evelyn's recording, had been more than enough to bring him down. His organization had collapsed, his partners had turned on him, and his empire had crumbled to dust. Riley sat on the front steps of the clubhouse, watching the sun set over the property. The sky was streaked with orange and purple, the kind of sunset her mother used to tell her about in the few memories she still had. Evelyn walked out and sat beside her, moving slowly but steadily. Beautiful evening, Evelyn said. Yeah, Riley said softly. It is. Evelyn was quiet for a moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver locket. I want you to have this. Riley took it carefully and opened it. Inside was a picture of Sarah, young and smiling, holding a baby in her arms. That's you, Evelyn said. She carried that everywhere. Marcus found it in her things after she died. I've been holding on to it, waiting for the right time to give it to you. Riley's throat tightened. Thank you. Evelyn patted her hand gently. You remind me of her, you know? Not just in the way you look, but in the way you stand your ground. She would be so proud of you. Riley closed the locket and held it close to her chest. I wish I could have known her. You do know her, Evelyn said. Every kind choice you make. Every time you choose hope over hate. That's her living through you. Riley smiled through her tears. Marcus stepped outside, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. Bike's all fixed. You want to take it for a ride? Riley stood, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Yeah, I'd like that. They walked to the garage together, where a restored motorcycle sat gleaming under the lights. It had been Sarah's bike, the one she used to ride before she left. I've been working on it for weeks, Marcus said. Thought it was time it had a rider again. Riley ran her hand along the handlebars, feeling the connection to her mother in every curve of metal. Can you teach me how to ride it? Marcus smiled. I thought you'd never ask. Over the next few days, Marcus taught Riley everything he knew. How to balance, how to shift gears, how to lean into the curves and trust the road beneath her. And one evening, as the sun dipped low and the air turned cool, Riley rode alone for the first time. She felt the wind in her hair, the power of the engine beneath her, the freedom of the open road stretching out in front of her. For the first time in her life, she was not running from something. She was riding toward it. When she returned to the clubhouse, the entire club was waiting for her, cheering and clapping. Marcus pulled her into a hug, and Evelyn wiped tears from her eyes. Jack stood at the edge of the crowd, smiling quietly. Riley caught his eye and nodded. He nodded back, understanding passing between them without words. That night, as the fire crackled and the stars filled the sky, Riley sat surrounded by people who had become her family. Not by blood alone, but by choice, by loyalty, by love. Marcus raised a bottle and a toast. To Sarah, the woman who taught us that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when you are. To Sarah, everyone echoed. Riley looked around at the faces glowing in the firelight, and she felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace, belonging, home. She had spent her entire life believing she was unwanted, believing she was alone. But she had been wrong. She had always had a family. They just had not found each other yet. And now that they had, nothing would ever tear them apart again. If this story reminded you that kindness can change everything, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Riley stood at the edge of the property one last time, looking out at the road that had once meant escape and now meant choice. The engines were quiet, but in the silence, her heart no longer raced from fear. It beat slow and steady, like someone who finally had a place to belong. She knew the world beyond the gates was still harsh and unfair. But she also knew that a small act of kindness on a cold night had brought her home to a family she never knew was looking for her. And for the first time in her life, the road ahead did not look like a threat. It looked like a promise. Thank you for walking beside Riley from the cold streets to the warm fire of family, from fear to courage, from loneliness to belonging. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to keep these stories alive, share it with someone who needs hope today, and leave a comment about what family means to you, whether by blood or by choice. In a world that still moves too fast and feels too hard, every act of kindness, every moment of mercy, every choice to stand for what is right keeps the best parts of humanity alive. Ride safe, stand strong, and never forget that one moment of compassion can change not just a life, but a legacy.